Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Huddle. I am Jody Costa. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for Barcoding Incorporated, and I'm happy to, allow my panelists today to join me on camera now. Come on and join in the Huddle. Be great. So we'll allow these folks to join, Peter and Scott, and we're looking for Stan. So he'll be making his way here shortly. Awesome. Hey, Stan. All right. Gang is all here. Welcome. We are thrilled to have you all out there in the audience and as well as those who will be listening in on this huddle later. Again, I'm Jody. I'm with Barcoding Incorporated. Barcoding is a supply chain automation innovation company, and we're really focused on helping organizations be more efficient, accurate, and connected. And one of our best partners, Honeywell, has joined us today for a very interesting conversation around the future of mobility. I think it's a topic that's near and dear to all of our hearts. It's something that we are all well versed in, and certainly lots of things coming down the pike for us to talk about in today's discussion. So it should be a really good one. For those who are joining us live, please feel free to use the Q&A and the chat. We'd love to have your participation. We'd love to have you on camera. We just couldn't quite pull that off. But please feel free to lob questions in as they come to you, and we'll tackle them. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to just start with some introductions. So Peter, you're in my top left. So I'll go ahead and start with you, and then we'll work our way around the circle.
Thanks, Jody. I've been in the AIDC, or Automated Identification Data Capture business, for many years. I'm now the Director of Partner Solutions, so I'm really focused on helping others become better at what they do and embracing that new technology and kind of staying on top of all of that. So that's kind of my role in the company right now, and it's a very satisfying place to be.
Yeah, you're our head supply chain geek. Is that an easier title?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, welcome. We're happy to have you here today. Scott, why don't we go ahead and flip to you and introduce yourself?
Yep. Hey, everybody. I'm Scott Stelter. I'm Director of Marketing for Mobility Products. So that's all the handheld computers and vehicle-mounted computers. Been with Honeywell for just about 3 years. And prior to that, I came in this direction via the RFID industry. And some of you know Impinj, where I ran marketing for Impinj for several years. And before that, you may be familiar with Alien Technology. Yes, that's what it's really called. And I was there for a while, Director of Marketing there as well. Nice to meet everybody.
Nice to have you here, Scott. I know that UFOs are big news right now, but I probably won't get to that today. We'll have to save that for another day. All right, Stan, please introduce yourself.
Hey, Jody. Yeah, thanks for having me. I am responsible for what we call enabling software. So I'm a Director of Product Management for enabling software, which is the software around our mobile computing solution. So if you think of things like the operating systems, Android, Mobility Edge is a platform, and a lot of the tools that go in and around that, I'm responsible for that. I've been with Honeywell actually for 19 years now. And yeah, I've had the pleasure of working in a handful of different divisions over the years and a couple of different groups within our productivity solutions and services business. But I've worked in engineering. I've worked in our combustion safety business. Back when we did thermostats, I worked in thermostats for a long time. But about 5 years ago, I came into what's now our productivity business. And I've led our scanning team, our printing team, those businesses, and now software.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I'm not quite to 19, but I did hit the 11-year mark yesterday. So 11 years now with Barcoding. But that's wonderful. We're happy to have you. We're happy to have all of you here, and we're thrilled that Honeywell was able to join us. You guys are a tremendous partner for us, and certainly we've got the experts here to talk about the future of mobility. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I think one of the places that we can't escape. Of course, I feel like every conversation starts this way, but global pandemic, right? Always top of mind, still top of mind. I'm sure lots of us out there are very thrilled that things are beginning to go in the right direction, but certainly a major disruptor to our lives and to our world. And the most logical place for us to start. There's been a lot of change, and some of that has been permanent, and then some of that maybe has been a temporary response. So I'm kind of curious, and this is just kind of, we're going to start with the big theoretical question, but I'm kind of curious from all of you, kind of what do you, in your perception of kind of our niche world on the mobile data collection side, what do you feel has been really a more, maybe a permanent and lasting change from the responses to the pandemic and across different industries? So that's a big question. That's why I figured we'll hear from all of you, but maybe we'll go ahead and start with Scott, and then we'll work our way around.
Yeah, it's a great question. If you think about it, the core of our economy in the United States and certainly in the developed world is the retail supply chain. So I don't say retail specifically because it's not just about people in shops, but it's their supply chain. So pretty much almost any business you care to point to has some connection to the system by which we manufacture goods in one part of the world, transport them over the world, and then deliver them to some retailer and possibly to someone's porch in a retail transaction. And so we've seen permanent change in the retail supply chain. And so just to give some examples, e-commerce, we always talk every year, you see the statistics from NRF and from other sources about how e-commerce is outgrowing brick and mortar retail, and it's pretty good, going to take over the world eventually. And, you talk about the Amazon effect and so on, but e-commerce actually accelerated and grew in different directions over the last 12 months than it had been over the last 5 years. In particular, it crossed into new demographic groups. So just a little thought experiment. I'll just ask this question. I'll give you a few seconds to think about what your answer is. What do you think the demographic is that grew the most quickly in terms of their e-commerce use over the last 12 months? Just think about that for a second. And the answer is boomers.
I was going to say,
yeah, exactly. What's that?
I was going to ask if it was my parents, because they certainly grew in their usage of
it is. And if you're engaged with your parents and you see them, what they do, that you probably saw this happening, right? So I've seen studies and surveys, and what the boomers are saying is, it was never for me. It's my kids do that. My grandkids do that. I maybe buy something at Christmas time, but I just don't do that much. I do it the old fashioned way. But over the last 12 months, they've been kind of forced into using e-commerce, and now they say, why did I wait? I'll never go back. And so now it's expanded into demographics. The other weird area of expansion has been across categories, and so most people have bought apparel or gadgets, online prior to the pandemic year. But since then, e-commerce in grocery has exploded, and e-commerce in other areas like do-it-yourself. Like I bought grass seed the other day. I had grass seed delivered to my front door the other day from your local hardware store. And so that's just something I never would have imagined. I'm embarrassed to admit it's 3 miles to the local do-it-yourself store. And I didn't drive there and pick up the grass seed. I had Amazon bring it to me. In fact, I'm actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm very embarrassed to admit that. But that's what we did. And so what the last 12 months has done is it's irreversibly exploded e-commerce across demographics and across categories. And what that's done is it's forced retailers and also last mile delivery people to invest in a completely new set of software, hardware, systems, and just brain power to figure out how to respond. And one last comment, one example of this is a lot of retail stores with chains are actually shutting down some of their stores and turning them into micro distribution centers in
micro
regions of
fulfillment
large
centers.
cities. Yeah, exactly. So that's my 2 cents on that question.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I know Peter's, I can actually see your body language. Go ahead and jump in there, because I mean, this is something you're experiencing and living right now too.
Well, I think to me, one of the most interesting things is almost every retail environment I've been to now has 3 to 5 parking spaces set aside just for people doing curbside pickup. Whether it's Panera or Home Depot or Walmart, everybody's embracing that, goods to person model where the person is the customer. And that takes a different type of infrastructure to support. It takes a different type of mindset, but it is something that's going to be with us for the long haul, because it's just so freaking convenient for everyone. It allows people to keep a closer grasp on what's happening in their stores and in their store environments. If you can predict, what orders are being placed on that day because you've already received the orders, stocking can become more efficient. Satisfying your customers can be more efficient. There's just a lot of positives there.
And I almost think that there's, I mean, you all have, been in the industry a long time. Stan, you said 19 years at Honeywell. I mean, out of those 19 years, maybe friends and family didn't always 100% get. Maybe once you move to productivity, they're kind of like, oh, mobile computers, I kind of think about that. I kind of don't. Supply chain, I kind of think about that. I kind of don't. Now, after the pandemic and supply chain being front and center, and then, ye old big boat getting stuck in the Suez Canal. I mean, everybody was talking supply chain. It's really fascinating because I think the work that we all do together is now front and center in people's minds because they've lived it a little bit. Would you agree with that, Stan? Have you seen that in your conversations?
I have. How I would describe it is that it's changed the way a lot of people think. And while we've always had, ever since the internet, a wealth of information, people's awareness has increased even more, not only around the pandemic itself and, how to distance yourself and protect yourself, those sorts of things, but as sort of a secondary factor, and Peter, you were alluding to this as well, people have become much more aware of other benefits, right? The productivity savings, the efficiencies, and there's improved quality from some of the changes that have been implemented. And those things are going to stick, not only because it's good for our health, but it's good for our business and it's good for our experiences as well. And everything contactless is one of those things, right? Everybody, nobody shake hands and keep your distance. So everybody was hypersensitive to that, everything contactless. Well, it turns out one of the things that came out of that and was accelerated is contactless payment. Does contactless payment really help reduce the spread of communicable diseases? I don't really think so myself, but there sure are some other great benefits to it with efficiencies, reduced costs, and just a better customer experience. So
better security.
And better security, right? Yeah, there's all sorts of reasons why some of these things are going to stick around, right? Some of them are sticking around just because now we're more conscious of health risks and some concerns, but other things are sticking around for other reasons. We were just exposed and learned new ways to improve safety, productivity, and personal experiences.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, and I love the positive take, right? There's so many benefits, and I think sometimes we forget about that. And it's always something that we've talked about a lot here at Barcoding is we really try to understand the intersection between people and technology. And there's actually a great book, I actually have it on my desk here, called the Technology Fallacy. And it's really about this, people being the key to digital transformation. And I think that was kind of exhibited throughout the pandemic response. But a lot of folks who will be viewing this might say, okay, Barcoding, Honeywell, like, this is all great from a macro sense, and I get it because I'm living it, but how do I start to make sense of it all? And how do I start to handle, this change really in kind of my business environment? What are the foundational elements that I need to start to think about? So to get this ball rolling, I'm going to go ahead and start with Scott. So we start to think about, really, if we're dealing with a lot of pressures from demand, maybe within a warehouse or distribution environment or those micro fulfillment centers, what do we need to start to think about foundationally?
Well, Boy, it's a broad question. I think, I guess I'll just start with a number of trends that I'm seeing in the mobility side of things. Mobility has gone from being a a special purpose tool that you see an individual like in a retail store or in a warehouse using for a particular use case, to being a generic power tool, super enabler for all the employees. So when we're talking about deploying solutions, like for example in retail, we're talking to a lot of retailers now who have gone from needing a few devices with keyboards in the back of store and a few devices in the front of store to do this or that, to every employee needs to have a device now, because it's not about treating these things as specific tools, but rather they are enablers and empowering devices for individuals. And when I talk to retailers, what I hear is retailers would like to have fewer employees, being more productive and more efficient, and being more general purpose, being able to do more stuff within the store.
Mhm.
And so they need a solution set that's consistent with that vision. So we're talking frankly about lower cost on the devices, because if I have 5,000 employees and I used to outfit 1,000 of them with devices, but now I'm going to give 5,000 of them devices, I need a more efficient model. But I can't sacrifice I need a model that's a stable, durable foundation, because if I'm a lot of businesses and retailers in particular spend big money and lots of brain power developing solutions for their stores, for their particular use case, customers, their category, whatever it might be. They put a lot of brain power into that. They have their own software people, their own process people, and so they want to invest in a platform, in a solution rather, that's going to be durable and stable and secure. And that platform involves the hardware. So they want hardware that's going to be more cost effective to buy, and yet doesn't sacrifice that security, stability, and durability.
Well,
And so that's a full, what's that?
And they're getting some cost takeout on that by adding in things like unified communication, so that they get more out of that device and keep their people connected. I mean, that to me is the kicker. It's a smartphone, and people are realizing, well, wait a minute, if I'm giving my employees a smartphone, maybe I could use it to talk to them with, as well as getting their jobs done.
That's true, but it also raises a corollary question, which is, wait, if it's a smartphone, is it really a smartphone, or is it a mobile computer with phone capabilities? And because if it is a smartphone, why can't I buy a consumer device? And what you find is the reason you can't buy a consumer device is that the consumer device, I mean, you can for some use cases, obviously, but that's kind of more of a 2-year throwaway and replace model, as opposed to a model where you're investing for 5 years in this durable platform. The consumer devices, they're less rugged. They don't have the enterprise support, and Stan could talk your ear off about all the things we do to provide that enterprise support. So it's really a B2B transaction. Using a consumer device that you cherry pick out of the consumer world may feel good in the short term, but if you run the numbers, after 3 years, 25% of those devices are broken.
Oh,
the support costs, and the support costs are a lot higher. So anyway, that's an interesting corollary to your point.
What we found is that if you're doing a bring your own device or a consumer device, it's great for proof of concept. If you want to use something that you're going to throw away to figure out whether or not this is going to work for your company, go for it. But once you figured out, hey, there's applications, there's functionality that we need, look at the total cost of ownership. That's where your real bang is going to come from, because you need to be able to support these devices as well as keep them running.
Yeah, actually, I pitch it to Stan, because I mean, on operating system support, Stan, I think you've got some interesting observations in this area.
Yeah, as you said, I could probably talk your ear off on that subject. I'll try not to.
Well, we're here.
That's what we're here for. I want to make sure we get to the core of your question too, Jody. I do want to talk about security and the longevity of these platforms, because it's critically important. But there's this question about the future as well, because not only do the customers, especially enterprises, need a platform that they can build upon for years to come and rely on that, and I have to rip and replace and do all those nasty things, but also thinking about, well, what's next? I need to build on it without ripping things out. So, what's going on with 5G? What's going on with 4G? What's this Wi-Fi 6 thing? And there's other technologies like RFID, right? So there's a lot of options. There's a lot of current options. There's a lot of future things that we're talking about, and some of them we're getting ready to roll out now. So there's a lot of decisions to make. But before you do any of that, you better make sure that you're on a solid foundation. Otherwise, all those other decisions that you make further down the road are just going to have to be thrown away, and you got to replace them. So yes, you better pick a platform that has longevity in both its hardware and its software. And now those two things are actually inseparable when you think about the life of a product.
Yeah.
A solution, I should say, because your mobile computer may not have physically broken yet because it's so rugged, or maybe you're just not that hard on it. But is the software capable of running the latest operating system and capable of receiving the best available security? Right. So you have to think about the durability of both the hardware and the software, and make sure that you are going to have the things available to you for years to come, to make sure that you're not taking security risks or having to prematurely replace components in your overall solution.
Yeah, and you know what the tell is? If you look at a consumer device and look at if you can even find a data sheet, which often you can't, but you look at a consumer device's technical information, and it says operating system, Android 10, and that's it. And if you look at a business-oriented mobile computer that is founded on a stable platform, it says operating system starts with Android 10, goes to Android 13 or 14 or whatever it is. Guaranteed support for these versions. That's, to me, I mean, I've got my iPhone here, and it's great. It works for me. It does everything I want to do. But if I'm a business owner, I'm putting a few $1 million into a solution. I want a little bit more specificity in what I'm investing in. So, I mean, that's an indicator that you can look at and see for yourself.
There's a critical nuance in what Scott just said there that I want to point out, because if you're not educated on this, you'll totally miss it. If you're just reading a spec sheet, for example, and you say, oh, all right, so this enterprise device, it's delivered on, say Android 10, and it's good up to Android 14. What about in between? And why is that important, right? If you know anything about Android, then you know that in order to get the best available security, you have to have the current Android version. So if you bought a device on Android 10, and then a year goes by, if the OEM doesn't deliver the next Android version, Android 11 in this example, then guess what? You don't have the best available security. So the beginning and the end are important, but it's not all that matters. You need to have certainty that you're going to get the best available security over the entire life of the device, not just the beginning and the end of it.
Right. So I want to kind of tie some of this together for our audience, and because we've already touched upon a number of different things. But if I'm sitting in the position where maybe I'm the one in charge of my mobility platform in my business, and I'm kind of hearing everything that you're saying, but maybe summarize for me kind of some of those core concepts that I really need to keep in mind as I'm planning for the future. So what are those, like, maybe top 3 things that I have to think about, kind of in a summary form, if I'm the one thinking for the future?
Scott, for time's sake, you want to talk about some of the things that are coming? Maybe some of the things that I mentioned on future/current technology.
Sure. So first, I do just want to put a stake in a stable, durable platform. That's critical, and you should always be thinking that way. Beyond that, then you need to think about, am I future-proofed? Am I investing in the right technology? Because what's the point of investing in a platform that's going to be there for 7 years if I need technology X in
Mhm.
3 years. So one that always comes up is 5G.
Mhm.
And to be clear, Honeywell has 5G products on our roadmap. We'll be delivering 5G products in 2022. We actually have 3 products coming. I can't speak in more detail to what they are at this point. It's premature, but we're fully committed in investing in 5G, as many others are, our competition and consumer devices and so on. That
Right.
being said, um, if you currently have 4G devices that you have deployed in use cases and they're working for you, you 5G will deliver virtually no added value to those use cases. And the reason that's important to keep in mind is that 4G devices are riding that experience curve. So you're at the state of the curve now where the costs are dropping rapidly, the devices are stable, the risk is low, the infrastructure is actually improving. 4G infrastructure is actually maturing and improving in all countries, including North America, partly because it's just getting more mature, but also partly because investments in 5G are making 4G work even better. So if 4G is working for you now, it's going to work for you even better going forward. And you're going to pay less for that platform, and you're going to get more stability, lower risk, and just more than enough performance in order to keep doing what you're doing. On the other hand, it raises the question, where would you invest in 5G? Well, you want to invest in 5G where the attributes of 5G, the unique attributes of 5G actually enable you to do new stuff. So what are those attributes? There are a number of them, and I'm sure there are probably experts on here who know more about it than I do, but a couple of them are very, very low latency. So super fast response, cellular response that's like being on a hardwired network. And then also very high throughput. So if you, for example, are doing things that require a quick control loop, like autonomous devices, or if you need that high throughput, like you need like a heads-up display with augmented reality, that sort of thing, 5G is the thing. And those devices are coming. Honeywell will be delivering those devices. You'll find them from other vendors over the next few years. Those use cases are coming, and they will definitely add value to your business. But the person doing picking or delivering stuff out on the road to porches doesn't need that. And if you invest in 5G, you're going to pay a lot more for 5G and not get a lot of value.
So one thing I want to kind of bring up about this whole discussion, we've talked about, total cost of ownership on our devices. We really haven't mentioned the idea of mobile device management, because once you've deployed 1,600 devices to your employees, how do you update them? How do you keep them maintained? And the key to that is mobile device management. You have to have a suite of tools that allows you to touch and maintain those devices without having to depot them, without having to bring them back into an engineer who has to physically touch them. If a patch has to go out, you want it to go out in the field, on the fly, on demand. And you have to put your infrastructure in place to do that.
Oh yeah, no, and as I'm sure folks are kind of understanding, we talked about there just being a lot of things that you need to make decisions on, and I think this is where, just to put it really into perspective, that's where this partnership comes into play, right? Barcoding and Honeywell are partners you can rely on to kind of make sense of that, and that's ultimately why we need a full ecosystem of support, because it is a lot to manage and it's a lot to think through, especially as even when we choose a durable platform, there are going to be things that are coming. And to Scott, to your point, not all things are right for all applications. So you might be managing multiple different types of devices, multiple types of connectivity within one space, right? I mean, could be that you have 5G over here and 4G somewhere else, or would a customer have to do all at once?
Yeah, employees running tablets versus employees running, mobile form factor. It's going to be different based upon the use case. But the nice thing about the Honeywell solution is that common Android platform. I mean, could you talk a little bit about that, Stan or Scott?
Yeah, I can jump in on that and talk about our platforms. And by the way, we actually have 2 platforms. Scott mentioned in some use cases, a consumer or a lesser device is okay, right? If you're only going to keep your device and solution around for 2, maybe 3 years, then you can maybe use a consumer device, or you could also use what we have called the ScanPal series. For the folks that need a more stable and longer life solution, we have Mobility Edge. And with Mobility Edge, that platform is designed to be compatible universally across multiple device types and across all sorts of different software and tools. So whether you're talking about one of our handheld devices that's a full keyboard for a warehouse, or maybe it's a full touchscreen device that's for a different part of the warehouse, or it's maybe for the front of the store versus the back of the store, our software all works the same, and it's all configured the same way. And you can build new applications on it without having to worry or even fully retest how it works on one device versus the other, right? It's that consistency, not only the consistency, but removing the cost and effort for our customers and the IT managers to develop, test, validate, and deploy their solutions on this platform, right? So that's how we think of it, as this large ecosystem that's highly stable, extremely universal, that enable customers to build on, build out, and to do that in an easy way for years to come.
Oh, no, I 100% agree. I think if you think about the agility that's needed coming out of something like the pandemic, that's exactly what you're talking about. I need to be able to develop on the fly and be able to know that I can test and deploy quickly. So
yeah, deploy quickly is really important. Peter, you mentioned updating firmware, right? You were talking about that, and well, Android is very different from Windows, and the cadence for Android updates is at least quarterly, right? And as you said, you can't be sending all these devices back to a depot, physically sending devices or physically grabbing all these devices to update firmware versions. With Android giving a new update quarterly and a major new version annually, you just can't do that. You must have a very efficient way to do that. And MDMs are a big part of that solution. You also need the stable platforms so that you don't have to retest and redo things. Pushing the updates to the device is one task. It really stinks if you have to update your applications to make them compatible.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing for an MDM is sometimes new solutions come out. For example, with the whole COVID pandemic thing, people wanted a way of saying, "Hey, are you healthy? Have you checked in? Are you maintaining a safe distance?" And they were able to come up with and push apps out to these devices to use the infrastructure they had in place to do more and improve their operations in a very agile way. But without that platform, it wouldn't have been possible.
Yep, you do it without physically touching the device. And in today's world, you actually need to do that frequently, at least quarterly.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm going to shift gears real quick because I want to come back to this, but Scott, I know you got a customer to get to, but I did want to touch real quick on artificial intelligence. I feel like no conversation about the future could be complete without AI. So give us the skinny on artificial intelligence and what you're seeing. The skinny.
Yeah, sure. So artificial intelligence is in everything now, whether you know it or not. And what's happened in the last 5 years, I remember 5 years ago, I was in one of these RFID jobs that I was in before, and we actually hired a PhD in artificial intelligence to teach our engineering team about artificial intelligence. And what this person said at this time was, artificial intelligence has just gone through an inflection point. Major technical challenges in the artificial intelligence world have been solved really in like this is just about 6 years ago. And going forward, artificial intelligence is going to go from giant computers at IBM and science fiction to commercial reality for the average person. And that really is happening. And if you look at the specs on your iPhone, if you have one, it actually talks about the version of the AI engine. inside your iPhone. And the mobile computers that you're using that Honeywell offers also have AI engines. And we're launching 3 new products over the next 8 months, and 2 of them have really advanced AI. One of them we're going to announce in June, and so please watch for that new mobile computer. And they have advanced AI engines in them. And the reason is, I go back to what we were talking about earlier about being future-proofed. You know, you may not be running applications that use it now, but you may be running them in 3 years, and the device will be ready for you when you are. And what are those sorts of applications? So, for example, being able to do to run machine learning trained algorithms to read barcodes that can even interpret barcodes that are dirty or damaged or torn or marked. So, you know, if you know, as a human being, you may, if you operated on an algorithm basis, you might look at a barcode and say, well, I can't interpret that. But as a human being, you can draw inferences and determine what it really says. You can interpret images and situations that are perhaps not black and white, pardon the pun, but are maybe a little bit ambiguous, but you can still determine the answer or draw meaning from them because of the way your brain works. Well, we're able to start to put that capability in neural networks into these devices, and these AI engines in the processors that we're choosing going forward have engines for running neural networks. And so the ability to interpret, like for example, at NRF about a year ago, we demonstrated the ability to take a picture using the scan engine, take a picture of a shelf, looking at the packaging on a package, sorry, that's my hand in front of me, the packaging on a package, the barcode label, which has SKU information, and the human readable price information, and recognize the package by its packaging, the product by its packaging, read the barcode, and read the human information by OCR, and match that up to confirm the planogram. Are we planogram compliant, for example? And we did that using artificial intelligence. Now that was a technology demo at NRF, but that's going to become more and more common going forward. And so we're investing in our technology to be able to make that possible. Another great example, and then I'll let this go, is you know, we have this fantastic voice business that one of our sister businesses, I'm not part of it, but it's really impressive business where people have these headsets and they're able to communicate with the computer when they're, say, doing picking and so on, to keep their hands free. So it's different than using a touchscreen based device. It's more audible. Well, obviously there are limitations, right? I mean, it's very sophisticated, but it can only do so much. But in the future, we're going to be able to do more and more true natural language communication with the computers, where you actually talk to the computer like it's Hal, and Hal talks back. And I saw that movie again the other day, by the way, 2001. But you can actually talk to the computer, and we'll be able to do that because of the enhanced AI and processing capability we're putting in devices.
Yeah, I want you to kind of think about that in terms of, I mean, we think about Siri, and Siri's got to be in the cloud, and your device is talking to the cloud, right? With edge devices, you're bringing that intelligence down so that it's local, so that you don't necessarily need the bandwidth to the internet to handle that inquiry and handle that communications. So bringing AI and ML down to the device level means edge computing will function in ways that it never has been able to before.
That's exactly right.
I'm basking in the glow of all the excitement, because it's just, it kind of starts to boggle the mind, because it's really about, you know, what do you want to get done? How do you want to get it done? How much more efficient and accurate can we get? Where can we start to connect things? It seems like the sky is the limit once you start to build out these foundational platforms.
I think we're getting to the point where the mobile devices are going to get less and less transaction oriented and more event oriented. Do you guys know what I'm getting at there? I mean, for example, if I'm running a transaction, I'm doing an inventory control transaction. So it's telling me count this item and tell me how much I have. Well, at the same time, there's a lot of IoT stuff happening in the background. It's saying your device is running at battery level at this point. You've made this many scans, and you've had to rescan this particular barcode 3 times before it would accept the volume. I mean, there's a ton of information happening there that has nothing to do with the transaction that AI and machine learning can use to improve operations overall.
Yeah,
And it's
actually,
just fascinating.
that's a very good point. And I'll just say, now cross that with the observation we had earlier about how it's no longer 10% of the employees that have devices, but now all the employees have devices. And now all of a sudden I have edge sensor devices with high bandwidth connections to the cloud and edge processing capability roaming the building constantly. So I'm sensing my environment all the time. Just imagine the potential there. When we add new sensors, we'll be adding new sensors to devices over the next few years. It's just going to be super, super powerful. You will not recognize, 5 years from now, you will not recognize what we're doing compared to now. It'll be just really cool and amazing.
Even today, right? I mean, even today, we have instrumented these devices with new sensors, and yeah, there's absolutely more to come. You don't have to wait years from now to get some of these benefits, right? We already have some of them through operational intelligence and new sensors that we put in devices. One of the things that Scott and his team has done is to put sensors in the devices that help detect drops and abuse.
Yep.
Right. Gain more insights. Right. Well, what not just the transaction as you were calling it, Peter, but what's going on in and around this device, such that the customer can gain some new insights to improve their operations, improve how they manage the devices, maybe change employee behaviors. Right. Yep. It goes a lot further than just that transaction now.
Yeah, we call it. I'm calling it telematics.
Yeah, actually, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I do have to drop for this customer commitment, but I'll close with just a quick story. So what Stan's referring to is that, all these devices, they have accelerometers. Turns out the accelerometers most mobile devices, including consumer devices, aren't very good for distinguishing between. They're good for detecting orientation and maybe kind of dead reckoning navigation, but they're not particularly good for distinguishing between putting my computer on my desk and dropping my computer on the concrete. The sensors saturate, they can't tell the difference. So what we put in some of our devices, especially the super rugged ones in the warehouses, we put sensors that can actually have very high G-force discrimination capability. So they can actually tell the difference between putting it on a desk and dropping it on the concrete. And so now we can actually monitor. So if you have 5 warehouses and you have a really high breakage rate, warehouse number 4, I can tell you which employees logged in when those devices are getting broken. And maybe you got a training issue. But then I'll just close with this story. So when we told one of our customers about this, he told me the story and he swears it's true. I believe it's probably apocryphal, but I want to believe it's true because it's such a fun story. What this guy said is that they caught some employees once who were driving forklifts. This is the middle of the night, right? In a 24-hour warehouse. They're taking a break. They put a computer on top of the forklift, the thing on the top of the forklift, and Starsky and Hutch the forklift around a corner to shoot the computer off to try to get it into a box. Now I'm told that really happened. I don't believe it, but I want to believe it's true. And that's what that application is for. And with that, I apologize. I really enjoyed the conversation and got to move on to visit a customer.
That's awesome. That's a great way to
nice exit, Scott.
Yeah, nice exit.
See you later.
You reminded me of a story because I took some devices to our neighboring school to show them, on a career day kind of thing, our industry. And the operational intelligence meters would have gone crazy with how the 5th graders interacted with the devices. There was definitely some training issues on that front. So I'm sure it did happen. But I want to, so obviously, great to have Scott. And well, while we still have you, Stan, I think the best place to kind of round out our conversation is around security. We have obviously touched upon this amazing potential and this vision of everything kind of being connected and talking and data flowing all which way for us to make better decisions, to improve our operations, to actually make people's lives better, right? But all of that does, I would assume, introduce us to some security risks, and I think it's probably really on everybody's minds now on how to start to tackle this, and what should we think about and what's kind of coming down the pike.
Yeah, great topic and in question. Security and the threats have constantly evolved. That actually hasn't changed. Like, people's awareness has changed. The other things that's changed is that Android and Windows are entirely different. I often get asked, "Hey, can you do a side-by-side comparison of Windows to Android?" I'd like to be able to just say, no, I can't. They're really apples and oranges. Can you draw some analogies and comparisons? Sure, and I can share those with you, but they are very different, and how security is managed, how the versions are managed is very different. The threats that are out there, and the fact that there are threats, the number of them, have they increased over the years? Sure, but it's still the same deal where there's always bad guys out there trying to take advantage of people and things for whatever purposes, typically to gain money.
Yeah.
So if you only unpack that a little bit, because there's a couple subjects in there. First, let me describe Windows and Android. One thing that's fundamentally different about Android compared to Windows is that Android is designed to build upon each prior version. This was a choice made by Android to drive better compatibility. So when they were talking to people like Honeywell and end users, they recognized a lot of the same things I was talking about earlier with longevity of platforms and compatibility. People need something that they can rely on for years to come without having to rip and replace their applications or adjust code, do all these things when the operating system provider changes versions. Right? In the old world, and I'm not trying to knock Windows in any way, but in the Windows world, it was largely set it and forget it, right? You put in
Security
Windows
through obscurity.
7 or Windows Mobile 6.5 or whatever. You put it on the device, maybe provide a patch 6 or 12 months later, and that's it. That's not sufficient anymore, and that's not how Android works. With Android, every version that they come out with builds upon the prior to ensure compatibility and always provides you the latest and greatest security, right? So it's made things a lot easier for customers and IT managers, people developing applications, ISVs, but still not everybody's aware of that difference in approach. And a lot of conversations I've been having over the last 2 years has been around educating people on that and getting people over the fear of making that transition from Windows to Android. Make no doubt, there's effort involved switching from Windows to Android. You do still have to create Android applications, right? And there's tools for doing that. But a lot of it's just been that sort of lack of understanding the difference. And security. Sorry, Peter, I think you want to jump in with a question or a comment. Go ahead.
Well, it also comes down to opportunity cost. I mean, if you're trying to maintain an older platform that only does one function on a device that on a yearly basis is now costing you more to maintain than a newer device, what's the point? I mean, you're not doing yourself or your company any service.
Right. Yeah, there was a study that was done. We referenced it on occasion. It costs on average, I think it's $700 per device per year to manage. There are tools and we have solutions to help reduce that number, but that's the average cost from an IT manager standpoint to manage devices. So yeah, it's costly. You want to minimize that, and it's a real thing. And being on an old operating system, be it an old Android version or old Windows version, there's the opportunity cost of putting in the investment to make the switch or do the upgrades. But there's also a real risk that you're taking on, right? How much risk do you really want to take on? You look at everything that's happening with the threats, and now ransomware is really popular, unfortunately, that is impacting people and applications that previously had thought that they were safe, and security really wasn't all that important to them, because there was this thinking that, well, I'm in a warehouse or DC or whatever the application is where my devices aren't connected to the internet, and I don't have sensitive data on these devices, right? I don't have credit card information or customer information, or anything like that. So I think, well, security really isn't that big of a deal for me until you learn about, or worse yet, get hit with ransomware, where the bad guys come in and lock down your operations, your devices, your network, and hold it for ransom. And you can't do business until you either rip and replace all that software or you pay the ransom. Don't pay the ransom, by the way. They may or may not turn your systems back on. But yeah, there's an opportunity cost, and there's the risk that comes with not investing into having the best available security.
Well, I'm also looking in terms of investing in your employees. And I mean, we hear, horror stories about, the generational gaps between the boomers and millennials, and how they deal with mobile devices in a different way. And you've still got a lot of major industry running green screen telnet applications that are about as user-friendly as, the index to the dictionary of your choice. I mean, they're just not designed to be easily consumed, easily understood. They're meant to follow a standard operating procedure, and that's all they do. Well, you've got no flexibility there. You've got no agility there. And onboarding new employees to a green screen versus onboarding new employees to a modern Android environment using a graphical user interface, huge difference. I mean, you're cutting your training time from 58 days on average down to 14 to get an employee up to full functionality on your application, if it's GUI versus being a telnet-based application. This is not unusual. I mean, there's reasons to move to Android if you're on an older platform. And a lot of them have to do with being able to hire employees who hang around and who are productive, and who you've given them tools where they can be productive.
Totally.
That's huge.
Totally agree. I think that's a very pertinent point, again, within today's landscape. I mean, we are hearing about the issues with finding labor. Obviously, retaining labor is a lot more cost effective than constantly training people up. So huge benefits there, I think, on the labor side that sometimes maybe get lost. But certainly barcoding, we've spent a number of years helping customers make that transition. So if you are out there and you're watching and you think, gosh, they have just described me and I really don't know where to get started, we are here, and we have done this successfully for a number of different people. So definitely reach out to Barcoding, and we together with Honeywell can help out. So good note there. I just want to make sure that people don't think they're alone.
Yeah, and you don't have to abandon your telnet application either, but you can modernize it. You can make it friendlier. You can throw basically a layer of interpretation across that thing that allows you to get more value out of it.
Right.
Yeah, shameless plug in the chat window from our friend Robert Adcox. There are some great tools out there for that. Smart TE being one of them, where you do automatic modernizations. Right, it's at little to no effort now for the IT manager to do that modernization, and then with Smart TE, you can even take it to the next level and do customizations to further improve productivity. Right, so you get that user experience enhancement, you get the productivity savings from that, and then if you want to take it to the next level, you can do some customizations and further improve your productivity and quality.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of just reduction in turnover, that's such a huge factor that doesn't get brought into play until somebody starts talking about, well, what are the value adds to modernizing my application? Well, if I can reduce your turnover from an average of 50% annually to maybe 35%, depending on the size of your warehouse, that may pay for your budget entirely. There's a lot of value to be found in these new operating systems and the new platforms. And that's another thing that excites me about it, because the competition is fierce out there for employees right now.
Oh yeah, no, and I think that, I mean, everyone who's been listening, hopefully you are all excited, because I think what Honeywell is doing is really wonderful. What impresses me most though is the mindset that you guys are taking, right? So I think I go back to Scott really hammering that point on, of like what you want to think about for that strong foundation, thinking about building a strong foundation that's durable and that's consistent. And I think, Stan, I'd love for you just to kind of also give us that final piece on that stability of the platform when you're talking about Android and why it's so important to think about that.
Sure, yeah. I'll summarize that and also give you a little glimpse of the future, because Mobility Edge platform has never been static. We actually introduced Mobility Edge in 2017, and it's been a stable rock ever since. That has all the things that we were talking about with each and every Android version. We make it available. We guarantee it. We're the only ones to do that. So you're not going to get painted into a corner and be forced to either compromise on security or have to rip and replace devices. By the way, we also enable you to upgrade at your own pace, right? So you're not forced to upgrade Android versions, but the platform has always evolved, and we have some really cool new things coming out. Scott alluded to some new devices that are coming out. The devices are a component of Mobility Edge and the larger ecosystem. We're also making enhancements to the software tools and APIs and SDKs. So you can look forward to new ways of having compatibility across the entire platform and ecosystem. You can look forward to new APIs and SDKs that enable customers to further optimize their business operations and solutions. And you can look forward to tools being simplified and expanded. So some things that may take multiple tools today, for example, license management and configuration, you can look forward to not only having enhancements to those individual tools, but some consolidation of that, so that we're making the lives easier for our IT managers and reducing the cost for corporations to manage all these. And one last thing, my last plug on what's going on with Mobility Edge, more insights, right? Peter described it really well with shifting from transactions, task-based things to insights and just doing more with these devices and the solutions. That's absolutely true with Mobility Edge devices and software. So we're creating new ways and more capabilities and more data being made available from our devices, and that data will be made available as well as the insights. And there is a big difference between data and insight. And some companies, they just need the data and they can derive their own insights, and other companies prefer the insights. So we're offering both.
That's awesome. Well, we are almost at time, so I'm gonna ask the tough question here at the very end, because it's the summary question. So, if Peter, you had to kind of summarize and use one word, let's use one. I'll give you a couple words in a short phrase. How would you summarize kind of your view of the future of mobility?
I would say smart assets.
Oh, smart assets. I like it. That definitely summarizes a lot of the sensing conversation that we had. Smart assets. So Stan, I'm buying you some time, but yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Peter was fast. my gears turn a little bit slower, I guess.
I thought I'd try to draw it out a little bit.
So the future is bright, but if I have to narrow it down to maybe just a few words, it goes to some seemingly opposing things, but they're not. Stable and dynamic.
Love it. I love it. Well, this has been a true pleasure talking with Honeywell today. Peter from Barcoding, thank you for joining as well. Stan, fantastic job. If Scott were here, I'd give him all the kudos, but he's not here, so you get all of the love. But we truly appreciate our partnership with Honeywell. Barcoding is a great partner with you guys, and we love bringing this kind of innovation to the organizations out there who need it. So if you have additional questions for us that you didn't get to ask during the huddle, or maybe you were shy and didn't want to pop anything into the chat, we are here. So check out that email address that is there for you. If you're watching a recording of this later, just reach out to us over our website, barcoding.com. You can hit the schedule consultation and we'll set something up, and we'll have a great conversation together, just like the one we had today. And certainly give you the scoop and all the great things that Honeywell is bringing to the table. So thank you all so much. We really appreciate it, and hope you have a wonderful rest of
Thanks, everyone, and thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Stay safe out there.
Hi, did you enjoy the huddle? I sure hope so. We were really excited to have you as part of our conversation and would love to continue it. If you have a question or a challenge that you're facing and Barcoding can help you out, please reach out. You can contact us on barcoding.com anytime or any of our social media channels. Again, we are here to help and would love to chat with you. Final ideas. Did you like the huddle so much you wanted to join? Do you want to come on air with me? Do you know someone who would be a great fit or a topic that you'd like to see covered? If so, reach out to me via email or LinkedIn, and I am happy to check in with you and talk through what we might be able to accomplish together. I would love to hear your ideas. We're always looking for new topics. So if you have an idea for Huddle or you'd like to be on a Huddle, contact me and we will make it happen. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye.